Good afternoon, everyone. I want to call to order this special meeting of the Strategic Planning Committee. It's Wednesday, July 17th at 5:02. Okay, before we start, can any commissioner who's on the line identify themselves? We need to make sure we have a quorum.
Commissioner Adel.
Commissioner Salemi here.
Okay.
Commissioner Bush here.
Commissioner Clark.
Commissioner Manda.
Commissioner Anderson.
Commissioner Lester.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
That's a quorum
Yes.
with the folks in the room. Okay, I'd like to invite any members of the public with comments relative to agenda items. Are there any public comments relating to the agenda? Hearing none, want to move on to our meeting minutes. We last met on May 15th, and the minutes have been drafted and circulated for our consideration of adoption tonight. Can I have a motion?
I'll move the minutes.
Thank you. Does anyone have any additions, any proposed edits, deletions, any changes whatsoever to the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I wanted to start today's meeting with the suggestion at the end of last meeting by Commissioner Mandyke was before we start the heavy lifting with developing our new strategic plan, she thought it was prudent, and I agree, that we spend some time collectively as a committee reviewing the mission statement and the core values that we've been using since we last developed a strategic plan. So this afternoon, I wanted to start by turning our attention to the mission statement. So we have a couple of options. We could just agree that the mission statements and the core values as drafted continue to make sense, as is, no changes necessary. Or if anyone has observations, suggestions, proposed edits, we can use that time together to make those changes and go through a refresh. So I'll kick off the conversation about the mission statement. When I look at a mission statement, I'm looking for three things. Do we accurately articulate what we do as an organization, how we operate, and who we serve? So I'd like to read into the record our current mission, which is the mission of the MDC is to provide our customers with safe, pure drinking water, environmentally protective wastewater collection and treatment, and other services that benefit the member towns. I wanted to share one of my initial observations about the mission, and specifically the focus on the end of that sentence that focuses on the benefit to member towns. I would suggest that could be considered too narrowly constructed, in that we really are here to serve more than the member towns. We have our customers, we have our employees, we have community partners, et cetera. And when I think of a mission statement, I think we want to be as inclusive and broad as appropriate. So with that, I'd like to open it up for any commissioner to react to that observation, share additional thoughts or issues that you want to raise. Who wants to get us started? Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The only thing I saw, it says sewage collection, you said wastewater collection. I think that's the correct word to use, so you're changing it to that, which I agree with. I
I
think
thought
as
it
you read it
was-
through, you read it as wastewater.
Yeah,
Okay. In mine, it says responsible sewage collection.
what version is that?
No, you're in the mission statement.
Was that attached to the,
It was the one here I got. Was that changed somewhere along the line, maybe?
This is John Myrtle. There's kind of two attachments. The first page, which has the table of contents, is from the prior strategic plan, which was '09 or so. I forget the time frame. And then the next page is starting with addendum.
Okay.
Chairwoman Gentile had asked about whether the district has core values, and
Yeah, I see it's on. Yeah,
this section is from an old employee handbook from 2015, which
okay.
had a mission statement, which I think Commissioner Johnson read from, and district goals and objectives. That was kind of the closest thing we found to core values. So that arguably the handbook from 2015 should have the same language as the strategic plan mission statement. I'm not sure if there was action modifying it, but that's why there's two different versions.
Okay, sorry about, I read the old one, but the word used, wastewater, is correct for today.
right, that makes sense. Thank you. Anyone else?
Just a question,
Yes.
and maybe John just answered it, but we've got the, to me, it looks purple background. That's 2009, which is not the actual from the strategic plan.
That is the first page. That is the strategic plan.
From the approved one.
Yeah.
And then what is the top of page, well, here it says 43, the district's mission statement.
That's from the employee handbook, and you'll see at the bottom of those pages, the October 2015 version of the handbook. So that language I may have been in preceding handbooks as well, and I think there may be some form of it currently, but that's what that language is from.
And I would say wholeheartedly, I agree with Chairman Gentile's suggestion that, you know, we do much more than just serve member towns. And there should be a better verbiage to include the other customers from outside of our member towns.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, this is Commissioner Salemi speaking. I would agree that we do more than serve just the member towns, because we do serve the non-member towns, but not in exactly the same way, but we do serve them. So, but I am going to question, you know, why are we're working on a strategic plan. Why are we adding the employee handbook to this? I really don't see a reason for that.
We're not.
I think the plan should be the plan, and it should be, you know, as concise as possible. And I don't know why we would bring in the mission statement from the employee handbook. But I would say that I'm certainly not interested in doing that. So that's just my opinion. But
Right, and I don't think anyone is suggesting that. I think as our district clerk explained, I was trying to thread the needle and make sure that we were including the mission, the most current mission statement, and core values, which are, you will be very familiar with that, Commissioner Salemi, because they are the preamble to the most current strategic plan, the initiative which you led. I was also looking for a vision statement, and there was no vision statement in the last strategic plan, and that's what I had asked for. And so really, for the purposes, and we're not at the vision statement development yet, but that will be next on the list once we button up and agree on what our mission statement is and what our core values are. The next step, and before we hit the ground with developing the strategic plan, will be articulating what our vision, which is supposed to be aspirational and forward-looking. So where do we want to be in 5 to 10 years? So the only place John was able to find any reference to a vision statement was on page 42 of the 2015 employee manual. That's the only reason why it's there.
I understand that. I mean, if I might, I agree with you that, the plan should be expansive enough to include non-member towns, in particular with all the rest that's going on now, what we're looking at for the future. But the reason that there wasn't a mission statement in the original plan was that it was not felt that the strategic plan committee was creating a strategic plan, and the mission statement is really in the ballpark of the district board. And that's who creates the mission statement of it. And it's derived directly from the charter. So I think that the mission statement that we have, if we think that it needs to be modified, it probably should be modified at that level, not here. I think that you're right to expand the plan to include, particularly the non-member towns, and maybe the entire franchise region, that we've been assigned to. But the mission statement, I think, is something that the entire board should be involved in, and not necessarily just a strategic plan. But thank you, and I appreciate why you want to do it. I'm just saying that why it's not there in the old strategic plan. The original plan was, there's a reason why it's not there. It wasn't just left out. So, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Desai? Make sure
Thank
you're
you,
not-
thank you, thank you. I think I kind of agree with Commissioner Salami in the sense that we have charter, we have statutes under which MDC is created, and we have been given some tasks based on those statutes, right? So the mission statement, if you're talking about as MDC mission statement as an overall, it's a at a board level versus a subcommittee level, right? And then also, should we just follow the statutes and that has given the charge, so that we are within those statutes and not go outside of statutes? Just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Patel?
In my opinion, this committee should discuss everything. And then later on, if we choose to bring it to the board can decide bless it or not bless it. So that's one part. Second part is amendment which you propose. Let's make sure that legally it doesn't cause any problems in the future. For example, non-member towns, rates, etc., which we went through recently. You don't want to face similar situation later on when you encompass all your vision to serve everybody. Because there will be times where we will be providing services to other areas besides what we serve today. So the mission statement, district vision statement, which is efficiently and effectively and efficiently provide clean, pure water and responsible environmental services for the benefit of all we serve. And that is good enough.
Right. So actually that was the one benefit that sharing this employee handbook, which has that same turn of phrase, if you will, instead of for the benefit of member towns, it says for the benefit of all we serve. So that was part of my analysis when I was suggesting maybe we expand it to not delimit it to member towns. Any other thoughts on the mission statement? Commissioner Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman Gentile. This is Commissioner Van Dyke. I think it's very important that I support Chairwoman Gentile's expansion of our mission as far as the verbiage is concerned, because I think as we have been growing throughout the past decade and a half, things have definitely changed with technology, with the way that we service our employees, with the way we service our customers. And I like the way that she's starting to be more inclusive in the areas that she has suggested and proposed with this, with the rewrite. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Curry.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. You know, the conversation's kind of interesting because to me, I see a mission statement and a vision statement as kind of like the building blocks you work off of as you begin to develop a strategic plan. And if we're identifying a mission statement or a vision statement or both that needs some tweaking, while this committee certainly doesn't have the authority, and if we move forward with a strategic plan, maybe it would take separate motions by the district board to approve them step by step, but there's certainly no reason why we should not tweak those building blocks to make them better so that the strategic plan will then begin to have a focus from those two areas. And, you know, the mission statement that's in the employee handbook, I mean, if you just take out a few words and basically just move them around, it makes sense. You know, if you said the mission of the MDC is to provide safe, pure drinking water, environmental protective wastewater collection and treatment, and other services to all of our customers, it says the same thing, but encompasses everyone that we serve.
So I wasn't suggesting, so when I put this on the agenda, I recognized two possibilities could emerge. One, we could be in violent agreement that the existing mission statement and core values as is are good enough. We can laminate them and move on to the next step, which is to develop the aspirational forward-looking vision statement. And the second option is there are possible enhancements or refresh that could require consideration at the entire board level for edits to the mission or the core values. So I think we can go either way, but I was not suggesting by having this on the agenda that this committee would have the final say in any edits to these documents. Anyone else before we move on? Okay, before we move on, I'm happy to put this on the agenda for next time, and I'll put pen to paper and redline this so that everyone has something to consider moving for the consideration at the next board meeting following our next committee meeting, okay? So the next item on the agenda is to review, yes, Commissioner Patel.
Should we not wait till we finish many other things and then bring everything to the board rather than bringing things piece by piece?
When you say many other things, are you including?
Including what we are working on, goals, objectives,
Yes.
and all details. So when
Yes.
we complete the report, then we bring it, rather than bringing only one mission statement and then go back again.
No, that makes sense.
Thank you.
I was unsure if you meant we needed the entire strategic plan. I think it's really important that the board weigh in on the mission and the core values and the vision, because that will provide us with the guideposts we need as we develop the strategic plan. So I think those are kind of the pre-work steps that we want to have tied up in a bow before we do the heavy lifting. Okay? So the next on the agenda is the core values, which you have in front of you. I'm not going to read them into the record. we have 9 specifically stated core values in 9 different bullet points. I will share some of my initial observations about the core values. I think there are things that we value quite highly that aren't reflected in this itemized list. There are others that seem to appear more than once. So there are 3 of the 9 bullets that talk about our workforce and workplace that I think could be consolidated into one kind of employment or employee development, et cetera, value. We value our employees and kind of include those 3 elements of having a stable, dedicated, skilled, and diverse workforce. To whom we provide a safe and healthy workplace and a workplace and contract service climate of acceptance and inclusion. So I think those 3 can be balled up into one bigger category. And along those same lines, the last bullet point, which talks about active participation in programs like workforce development programs, I think that kind of lends itself to another, I'm not suggesting that isn't a core value, it is, but I see that as part of a bigger core value of community engagement, which would include the active participation in programs that promote environmental values, that promote economic stabilization, that promote workforce development, et cetera. So I think we could kind of repackage them in a way that, again, is a little more inclusive than as they're drafted today. Another thing that I noticed which is similar to my observation about the mission statement in the 4th bullet, we talk about continued environmental compliance and stewardship of the watershed, and I'm wondering why we limited that to the watershed. I think the environmental justice parameters would be much broader than that. So I think we have some work to do to kind of align this with the current environment that we're operating in. And I think I'd like to see that we value here when we talk about a program to continually improve our performance. I think we could benefit from that being casting our net broader in that regard as well. Like, we really want to foster a culture of continuous improvement, and not just through process improvements, but also innovation and, looking at things differently, exploring other ways to do what all the work that you've been doing.
And metrics.
Right.
To track it.
Yeah. So those are just some of my thoughts. I'm sure, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but eager to hear from other folks how you feel about the 9 bullet points. Are there things that are missing? Are there things that you think are overstated that we no longer value? I doubt I see any of this coming off the list, even if it's cast in with a different emphasis. Yes, Commissioner Patel.
Solid waste. Are we looking into getting into that business? Because we entered into that business at that time as a subcontractor to help one existing organization. If we want to take the lead in that area, it is too much and we probably diluting our main focus from what we are created for and what our mission has been and continue to be.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
but this is Commissioner Salemi. I I think just going back to your comment on bullet number 4, I think the continual environmental compliance and stewardship of the watershed, the that part of the sentence, the stewardship of the watershed, is directly related to the charter, and it makes us responsible for the watershed lands that we own. And that's what that's about. That's basically, we have, direct responsibility for that. And we have, I'm sure staff can tell you of all the different things that we have. We have management programs for all the particularly for the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres, or thousands of acres that we have, that have to do with management and of the land, both for environmental reasons and for protection of the watershed and so forth. But it's directly related to what has become our responsibility in managing the watershed. So it's not supposed to be limiting in the way of how much we can do to protect it, but it does sort of basically limit us to managing the watershed lands that are ours and not others. So I'm not saying that we can't change any of the language there. I just want to make sure that we understand what stewardship of the watershed means. At least that's what it meant to me when we put it there. So.
Thank you. That makes perfect sense to me. And I guess the point I would emphasize is I think we value environmental stewardship beyond that. So it certainly includes our responsibility to maintain, what was the language? Yeah, stewardship of the watershed. So it could be environmental stewardship, including of the watershed, not limited to.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe to me, it's a grammar thing, and we're there's two different thoughts in that sentence. So, and I'm not combining the two. Maybe you are, but I'm satisfied that everybody understands what we're talking about. So I think if there's a change to it, we can talk about it then. If somebody has an actual change.
Right. So I have spent a lot of time reviewing other public utilities mission statements and core values, and virtually all of them have a very broad statement that they value environmental stewardship. And I'll just read from one of them: promoting responsible and sustainable practices regarding natural resources. That's very broad. I'm not wedded to any specific language. Here's another one. We recognize and take seriously the responsibility of managing limited and precious environmental resources that are vital to human life and the economic health of our community. We're committed to safely complying with all applicable regs to preserve the environment, aesthetic beauty, and economy in and around our service area. So it's a very general statement that appears over and over with many of these organizations. Commissioner Healy.
Yes, this is James Healy. I was going to say, I take Commissioner Salemi's point about the language of our charter. I had understood the chair's suggestion to be in the vein that she just said, in terms of, to make clear that our environmental compliance is directed toward, it is inclusive of, but not limited to. And I think I understood Commissioner Salemi to be there as well, and maybe we're talking language. And I think that's probably true with other aspects of these core values. For example, the seventh one talks about open communications and transparency, and it mentions member town, it mentions stakeholders, but obviously we're committed to having transparent communications beyond that. And
With our
I don't.
employees, with each other.
Exactly. And I don't think the core values, they could be seen as limiting in a way that I don't think was intended either at this time or at the time this was drafted, or certainly now. And that what we're really thinking about here is how to just make clear that these values are broad in their scope and that they're not intended to be limited to just individuals or just the watershed. And I think that's an appropriate way to think about these core values and to propose something along those lines to the full board.
Great, thank you. Bud, is your hand still up, Commissioner Salemi?
If it is, I didn't mean it to be.
Oh, okay.
But I just add to what was just said to say that, about the transparency and open communications and the way that we talk about compliance with, and, with respect to any other type of utility. We are a public entity. We are, the creation of the legislature. We're a 100% public agency. There's nothing that we can, there's really nothing that the district can keep from the public other than specific personnel records. This is basically the transparency and sharing all of this information with member towns and stakeholders goes beyond all that to the public. It's a public agency just the way every town is that belongs to the MDC as a member town is a public agency. So if we didn't go into detail and depth with describing what things like transparency and that stuff means, it's because we thought that it would be understood that that the MDC as a municipality has the same responsibility as its member towns with that. So I would just say that it doesn't mean that we can't say more. It's just that we tried to say as little as possible. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Chairwoman Josiah. Yes, this is Commissioner Van Dyke. Hello?
Yes, now we can hear you. Sorry, you were garbled.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry about that. I just wanted, Commissioner Van Dyke here, I just wanted to say, are you looking for us as a committee to agree that these core values need to be rewritten and that that you are willing, because of your research, to look at trying to redraft them, and you're looking for an agreement from this committee to say, yes, let's look at some let's look at that and let's move forward and consider some of those things, because we want to look at a broader scope. We want to be inclusive in these core values, and obviously, things have changed over.
Yes. I think the short answer to your question is yes. If people are in agreement that this is,
we want to make sure that we're including any. Is that what you're kind of looking for from us today, committee?
yes. The short answer is yes, if in fact that is the direction this committee wants to take. I am willing to put pen to paper, share examples of how other peer companies have kind of articulated their core values for consideration, unless everyone is comfortable with the 9 core values that have been articulated and been in place and have worked, but may not reflect the breadth of what this organization is dealing with today.
Well, then just to follow up, Madam Chairwoman, I would just say that I'm in agreement with you and I wholeheartedly support the process in which you have suggested to try and update these things that are obviously in need of a little refreshing, and making sure that, we look at them again as we should at this time. So thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. And in addition to what what I've read from other peer companies, I really wanted to give everyone the opportunity to put a fresh set of eyes on these in light. There are people who have been on this board for many decades and people who are brand new, and everyone's perspective is valued. Sometimes, fresh look, you're going to get all different perspectives, and that's what I'm trying to capture through this committee. Things that may not show up in competitive intelligence looking out on the web at similar peer companies, or that I identified just with my limited knowledge and experience. So I really do value everyone's input. Anyone else? Commissioner Taylor.
Yeah, I guess my concern here is I don't think we should diminish the importance of our watershed. I think that's one of the things that makes the MDC what it is. We've got that watershed, and we essentially have Class A water, and that's a lot different from a lot of companies that basically are pulling water out of, say, the Connecticut River or what have you. I would be very much concerned in terms of our core values that we do not emphasize and specify and indicate and make very clear that the watershed is sacrosanct and that we intend to view it and remain that way, that it remains that way, and we will do everything that we can to preserve that. I guess the question is, a lot, people say a lot has changed. Well, yeah, a lot's changed, but essentially we're still doing the same thing. We're dealing with water. We're dealing with wastewater. We were in the solid waste business, one, because basically we made it work. Two, basically that generated a fairly substantial amount of income for us. And in case we haven't looked at it very carefully, we're not generating a hell of a lot of money from the water side. And I'm not quite sure, in terms of what we're looking at here and what we're stating, that we not be very careful that we don't put ourselves in a position where essentially we cannot avail ourselves of possible sources of income that are going to be taking pressure off of our member towns, and more particularly the consumers of water, people who are paying water bills. That's, I guess, within this context, that's one of the things that I think we need to be very careful about in terms of our mission statement and our core values. So that's my concern.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have an advantage because I know you and I know your background and I know your level of expertise, and I would welcome your putting out for the next meeting some of your suggestions on all of the various documents that you've read leading up to today's meeting. And when were these core values? Do you know when these core values were established?
Well, before 2009, right?
It was 2009. 2009 was the report. Eight.
Yeah.
It was during the report. Okay. And certainly, I like broad-based statements, and I like one statement that encompasses everything and which allows more flexibility down the road. But think of the things that we do now that we didn't do in 2008. Like cybersecurity, it just goes, you know, there's a long list if you think about it, and some of that needs to be encompassed. And we don't have to say it, but as you suggested, that, you know, in a broad-based statement, you can look at it and say, yes, that encompasses all those new areas of responsibilities that MDC now has. And maybe at the end, maybe the last bullet, you know, it's the Buddy's concern, and while I understand that the importance of our watershed, there's no question there, you know, and I would welcome your opinion or others, but what if the last bullet was just simply comply with MDC's charter, bylaws, and ordinances, which would encompass everything without saying anything? But I would welcome your suggestions for our next meeting.
Okay. Happy to do that. Before we move on, is there anyone else who has any input that you want me to consider adding into the working model for our next meeting? Hearing none. The next item is a standing item that we will always have at the Strategic Planning Committee meetings, and that is an update on member town meetings. I know we, the East Hartford delegation, including all the commissioners and citizen members, met with the East Hartford mayor, but I don't know what's on deck or if there are any planned for other towns in the future.
We've also met with Hartford's mayor.
Yeah, I think we talked about that at our last meeting.
And
Yeah.
we have on the 24th of this month, we're meeting with Bloomfield's mayor.
Okay.
And tomorrow I'm going to send out notice to Windsor's mayor and town manager to set up a meeting for them. And that's it.
Making great progress.
Little steps.
I think it goes a long way to kind of strengthen.
Yeah, we've done West Hartford's mayor.
Yeah, it brings transparency and it strengthens the ties, and it's great communication. So thank you for that. Are there any members of the general public who have any comments that you wanted to share?
Yes,
No one's in this-
Chairwoman Gentile,
Yes,
can you hear me?
yes, Judy, go ahead.
This is Judy Allen from West Hartford. Just a couple thoughts as I was reading things and a question. In terms of the core values, I think it's the second to the last one. There's some language I think that needs to be looked at. For example, it talks about value and, sorry, it's too little. A workplace and contact service climate of acceptance and inclusion, values and promotes cultural awareness, tolerance, and respect. I think the word tolerance is not appropriate. We are better educated. We aren't tolerating anyone. We are joining with people. It's not that we don't like something and we're going to tolerate it, but more inclusive and appropriate language, I think, needs to be looked at in all of this. I also wondered if you wanted to wade into the territory of sexual orientation being something that the MDC values and wants to work with folks of that different sexual orientations. And then in my agenda, there's the core values, and then there's something else called goals and objectives. And I wasn't sure if that was the same as a vision statement. They look pretty different, and I'm not sure they match up with each other, but I was confused about what those were.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll apologize for the confusion because this is the second time it's come up that people are trying to marry the text in the actual vision, mission, and core values with the description in the employee handbook. So that is a totally different document and not one that we're necessarily trying to align with this or consider, because that's up to Jamie what goes into the employee handbook, not this committee.
Can I add to my comments based on what you just said? I think it's very important that in the employee handbook, there are these statements about core values and missions, because they're included in all of it and they should know about all of it. So that's my final comment. Thank you.
I don't disagree, but that's not in our wheelhouse. That's something that HR is responsible for putting together whatever directives there are for employees. Thank you. Any other public comments?
Hi, this is Mary Pelletier.
Yes, Mary.
I live at 80 Elizabeth Street in Hartford, Connecticut. I was a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee to the Long-Term Control Plan from 2005 to 2014. I also have started the Park Watershed, a 501c3 for the park that includes all the municipalities within the Park River Regional Watershed, which is all the voting member towns of the MDC except East Hartford. And I'm currently helping coordinate the North Branch Park River Watershed Management Plan update, which is a follow-up of the 2010 North Branch Park River Watershed Plan update. I appreciate the notion that the MDC is collaborating and inclusive. I would very much like to be added to the list of communities or list of people who get the email and is informed about this regional planning meeting, because everything about Park Watershed really emerged out of the my participation on the MDC CAC in learning that the Clean Water Act was really focused on the Connecticut River as a navigable river and not on the green infrastructure of the voting member towns. The North Branch is, of course, an impaired river now. And so the watershed of the MDC, of its voting member towns, is very different than the watershed from which the drinking water is drawn from and the watershed from which the wastewater and the residents the Connecticut River watershed is very different than the Park River Regional Watershed and the Farmington River watershed. And you're very protective of the watersheds around your drinking water reservoirs, not so much around the residents and the member towns. And I think there's many members who are hoping that we can make this transition to green infrastructure for stormwater management, along with other important wastewater treatment efforts the MDC is engaged in right now. And so I'd like to stay involved in this process, and so I'd like to receive the emails.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else?
Who can I follow up with about getting the information about these committee meetings?
You can contact me, John Myrtle.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other general public comments? Do any commissioners have requests for future agenda items? No future requests? I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, adjourn.